أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبي إله العالمين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور صدق الله العلي العظيم أفلح من يصلي على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, this year we will be doing something a little bit different. My goal, inshallah, is to attack a couple of different things at the same time. It's no secret that our youth have many problems going into the modern era that previous generations, even half generations, did not face before them, and therefore it becomes almost an unspoken new responsibility on the person who sits on the minbar to kind of address that. And while there are two main ways to go and approach these problems, one being a proactive and one being a reactive, I personally believe that the reactive way is a little bit outdated. To be reactive is to see these disparate problems coming one by one in the community and attack them one at a time. Or in our case, where the transgender movement has moved so forward that now it's become something to really now address, whereas many of my predecessors who sat on this minbar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not maybe address when LGBT, when homosexuality became something to really take into account in previous years, they did not address it at the time. And now that it's become more and more prevalent, now everybody sees that it is a problem, it has to be taken care of, it has to be addressed before it becomes introduced into the elementary school curriculum, into normalization, all of these different kinds of things. The second approach is a proactive one. And I believe that through the next 10 nights, inshallah, that together we can, inshallah, go on a akhlaqi journey and start to analyze through muraqaba and muhasaba, two things, two tools. One is to constantly always try to do more. The other is to always look back at your previous day and see what your causes of bad deeds were and try to eliminate those. Through this, we can, through atomic deeds, build up good habits. And inshallah, after we build up those good habits, we can also, inshallah, some of us, get to the level of disposition and second nature. With that second nature, now that it's proactively been infused into each and every single one of us, then it becomes much, much easier to combat whatever it is that comes at any time. Whether it's now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now, you can place us into any single time from the past, present, or future, and we will be ready to take it on. And this kind of an approach really comes from a singular conversation from the role model father in the Quran, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. Prophet Yaqub has one conversation with his son Yusuf in his childhood, before Yusuf is snatched away from his father's care, taken out of the picture, put into a completely non-Muslim environment, and he's left on his own. And yet, because he has that developed second nature, he's absolutely fine no matter what is thrown his way. We want to have kids who are following in the footsteps of these kinds of role models. And so the aim of these kinds of lectures is to make everything that is happening simultaneously around us in the ghaib become lucid, vivid, and understood chronologically and in its reality in a way that makes sense and is appealing. Because really, if someone forces you or me to go and learn religion, and it's a conversation we don't want to have, we're not going to want to engage in that conversation. So then what about our kids? What about our future generations? What about those who maybe are new to Islam and we are just forcing our cultural routines and practices onto them and not understanding that this is something that we also need a time to cultivate in ourselves. Therefore, tonight we will be discussing, and in the next few nights we will be discussing the Ma'ad. Tonight we'll start off with the discussion of what is death like. Tomorrow and the next few nights we will be discussing Barzakh and the mechanics of Barzakh, what is life like in the Barzakh, the questioning in the grave, what exactly is termed Barzakh, what is Wadi Salam, Wadi al-Walud. Then inshallah we will be looking at some portions of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Now of course Yawm al-Qiyamah is, for some people 50,000 years long, but we'll be looking at some of those important stages that we've heard a lot about and maybe look at them through a new lens and reinterpret and re-understand them. Then inshallah we'll finish off this series in Muḥarram with an analysis of paradise, Jahannam, and this often cited but sometimes not even heard of third place that people can go to eternally, the A'raf. Therefore tonight, when we come to the subject of death, is there even a reason to fear death? Or is this just something, like how many Maulanas say, is not something to even be afraid of? And of course we want to know what do the Ahlul Bayt have to say. Because if we don't go through their understanding of religion, we're just sitting over here and spouting off from our own pocket, bringing stuff and presenting it to the people. What is valuable is when it comes from the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. If it doesn't come from over there, then there's no point to even continuing from my side or your side, lecturing or listening. So, when it comes to fear of death, is there really anything to really be afraid of? Let's look at some of what the Imams have had to say. And we want to make sure that people don't walk away from these lecture series too creeped out, too afraid. We want to make sure that everybody has an understanding of what's going to happen to us, what's going to happen to others, and not walk away thinking, oh my God, I never want to come back to these majalis, I never want to come back next year, the Maulanas, all they do is just scare me. Let's just have a candid conversation of what happens. We find the Imam al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, says in Ma'ani al-Akhbar from his father, Imam Ali al-Hadi, that he came to visit one of his companions when he was on the brink of death. And this companion was really, really struggling with, what am I going to do? I mean, death is here and I'm not ready. Is it going to hurt? Is it going to this? He was really in this state of unease. Which for the people who are unacquainted with death, is very natural. That's not a, surprising thing to find. The Imam told him in the following way, basically to calm down. He said, "O ibad of Allah, O servant of God, you are afraid of death because you don't know it. Tell me, what do you see about the situation where if you're suffering from wounds and you have uncleanliness, there's infections and all this kind of stuff from your wounds, and you have blood caked up on your body, you have all of this situation and it's unclean, and you know that you can dispose of it as soon as you just go and take a sponge, you wash it all off, you go take a quick shower, it's all going to be gone, you put some Band-Aid, you go and heal everything, you put the nice balm, that medicine, that thing that goes and takes away the pain, the numbingness, right? You know that all of that is coming. Will you wash it away, or will you be unwilling to do so and just keep all of those pains and that uncleanliness, that filth? Which one do you want? Who would in their right mind choose the latter? Who would want to stay in the filth and the uncleanliness? Of course I would want to go and take the shower, go and wash it all off, go and take the medicine. Of course I would. Who wouldn't? Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam says, know that death is exactly that washing, and is exactly that medicine. It is the last thing you will experience to go and just absolve you of all of these pains and tribulations, whatever you have accumulated throughout your life, right? All these sicknesses, it is that final release, and it is a medicine. So if that's how it is, where it's a sweet medicine, and sometimes I know medicines, they can kind of be a little bit bitter, right? But imagine that medicine, right? Maybe not Robitussin or something like that. Maybe something that has like honey in it or something. You go and take that. Not only is it pleasing on the tongue, but you can start to feel the calming, soothing effects even outside of the taste buds, inshallah, even in your affected body parts. Another one is from Imam Ali ibn Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, where he says his father, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Right now we are in the nights of Imam Hussein at Karbala. At Karbala, Imam al-Sajjad says the following, that when the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam saw that the family and Imam Hussein alayhi salam were getting nearer and nearer and nearer to the time of war, while they were all freaking out, they were all, starting to worry about their businesses back home, their families, they're starting to actually start to think about it, because now death is right here. It's about to come. It is a few moments away. They see, on the other hand, Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family, they are absolutely unaffected. Actually, the converse is happening. They're becoming happier and they're in anticipation. Like, oh my God, death is almost here. Wow, it's already almost done. Life is almost done. And they said, look, they have no fear of death. Imam Hussein alayhi salam turns to these noble companions. He says, O noble-hearted companions, exercise fortitude, since death is only a bridge. And I want to highlight a little bit on this bridge. We'll come back to this in our final night, inshallah, where we talk about vertical eternity in paradise and hell. See, the way how time has been explained to us, we have a neurological way of understanding time where it's a procession of events in a linear sequence. Other cultures, maybe they have a cyclical understanding of time where it just goes around in a circle. And they cite, for example, that after spring comes summer every year. After summer comes fall. After fall comes winter. And then after winter comes spring again. But if we take both of these, we take the best of both of these theories and we make it into a spiral, and we'll come back to this later on. If you go in a forward motion in this spiral, you can eventually come upwards towards the next level. That next level for us would be barzakh. Everybody will get there after having traversed enough of their life where now, okay, you have to come to barzakh. And we'll talk more about barzakh tomorrow. But is it possible just to go and take, in our words, an elevator upwards and just experience barzakh? Yes. In the dreams. We have a hadith where sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Rasulullah says, as-salatu mi'raj al-mu'min. Doing your salah will take you up these levels. Now, of course, at the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he doesn't have contraptions where people will understand what he's saying if you go and say elevator. Maybe a couple of 100 years from now, there's an even better analogy. But what Imam Hussein alayhi salam connected, and he used the terminology between here and this point over here, after the spiral takes you there, is a bridge. Death is that bridge where it will take you there. Yes? And even this can be considered that bridge. If you want to take the long way around, take the long way around. Take the scenic route. It's okay. Over which you come across hardships and vicissitudes towards vast gardens and intricacies and intricate blessings. Which one of you dislikes moving from a prison to a palace? Behold, your foes over here in Karbala, they have to leave a palace and go towards a prison. For them, the spiral goes downwards. Right, in that metaphorical sense of, of going from ni'mah to niqmah, right? And this is something that we'll talk about in a few moments about the world of potentialities and the realm of actualities, yes? Hussein alayhi salam says, my father narrated to me from the blessed messenger of Allah, indeed the world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the disbeliever. Death is a bridge for the believer to reach paradise, and it is a bridge for the disbeliever to reach hell. Neither my father nor I have told any untruths. Subhanallah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam's words there in Karbala, now perhaps through this interpretation, we're starting to finally uncover through our modern understanding of quantum physics and time. Another one from Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. Imam al-Jawad quotes Imam Ali ibn Hussein, the fourth Imam, where Imam Ali ibn Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, says to a believer, death resembles casting off filthy garments, unfettering heavy feathers, like those chains, finally casting them off. and changing to the best and most fragrant of garments, the most comfortable of rides, the most secure of homes. And to a disbeliever, it is like casting away the luxurious attire, moving out of secure and nearby homes, and changing them to the filthiest and roughest of garments and the most far away, ghetto homes. The nice homes are in the downtown. The ones that are in the ghetto, those are kind of a little bit scary. It seems like it was that in Imam Zayn al-Abidin's time as well. And the most insecure homes and the worst of torments. And I'll conclude this portion with Imam al-Jawad's hadith alayhi salam, where he says that death for a believer is exactly that same exact sleep that you encounter every single night. But its duration is longer. You don't wake up. You will only wake up on the day of resurrection. How are the states of happiness and fear that you experience when you are in sleep? Don't you see indescribable joys and boundless fears in your dreams? I mean, sometimes those things that we see in our dreams, they become scarier than things that are in real life. Sometimes those joys that we experience in dreams are more real than we experience in real life. The Imam concludes, he says, death is similar to that, so prepare yourselves for it. Yes? And finally, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam says, death is like a purifying tool. It cleanses the sins of the faithful, and it purifies him in such a way that he pays for the last sins he committed with the last pain he experiences before dying. Meaning, basically, look, if death is supposed to be good for the believer, and death is supposed to be really, really hard for the disbeliever, how come sometimes we see people who are disbelievers and they're dying with the most easy of deaths? Sometimes believers, they have such hard deaths. Perfect example. Here we are in Karbala, in the 10 nights of Ashura. Why does Imam Hussein alayhi salam have to have the hardest of deaths? And Abu Fadl Abbas has to have the hardest of deaths. I thought angel of death is going to take it the easiest from these people. Before I get to that, let's go and analyze who exactly is taking the soul at the time of death. Some verses say Allah is taking it. Some verses say angel of death. Some say angels of death. Quickly, how do we explain this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take some souls. Malak al-Mawt will go and take some souls and then deliver them to Allah. The angels of death will take some souls and deliver it to Malak al-Mawt. Malak al-Mawt will go and take it and deliver it to Allah. It's a hierarchy. It's a bureaucracy, you could go and call it. It's a system. And this is how we understand that so many people at once, in a single instant, they can all die at once, because there are many angels of death who are working on this. And similarly, we can understand sometimes how, for Imam Ali alayhi salam, he's struck on the 19th, but he dies on the 21st, where it's not necessarily here in the realm of causes and effects that a bullet or a sword or whatever it is, that's not the reason that people die. The reason people die is when the angel comes and finally separates the soul from the body. And that's how we answer this question as well. How does Imam Hussein alayhi salam have such a hard death? How come Imam or Abu Fadl Abbas has such a hard death? How come all 11 of the Imams and Rasulullah, when he died, and Fatima Zahra, when she died, how come they had the most brutal, hard of deaths? Why didn't they have, those kinds of easy deaths where they're surrounded by family, they're just, easily being taken? Why not? We see that there are two types of death, brothers and sisters. The first type of death is what we see over here in the realm of causes and effects. Causes and effects, fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll go and make something the cause of death. COVID-19, cancer. He'll go and make some kind of a cough, a respiratory thing. Some old person might go and fall and their bones become brittle, right? But behind the scenes, in the ghaib, it is always the same exact thing. It is always Malak al-Mawt taking out the soul. And over there, that is how we understand وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا, where the believers are easily taken out their souls, where it's like water pouring out of a jug. And for the disbelievers, that second death, where the angel is taking out their souls, it becomes very, very hard. And we have descriptions of that. Descriptions such as, for example, where it's like a piece of cotton that they're trying to extract from a cactus. And wisps of wool are still remaining. Why are they remaining though, brothers and sisters? Because those people who death is hard for, they really, really melded together with dunya. They don't want to leave dunya. They're not ready to go to the next life. And so it becomes hard to separate it. You can make it easier on yourself, you can make it harder on yourself. As soon as you start detaching from dunya, your death is easier. You can die now before you die later. Die before you die is one of the prophetic sayings says. Other descriptions that have been offered by people, we'll look at some of these in the next few nights in Barzakh, where death is like a scissor coming and cutting you away from your body, or like some kind of a mallet grinding kind of thing where it's really separating your body from your soul. These different tools are needed for Malak al-Mawt to go and take those really, really stubborn people who are clinging on to dunya, who don't want to leave, because all they've done is prepare everything for dunya. They've prepared all their mansions over here. They haven't prepared any mansions over there in Jannah. They've prepared all of their, investments, everything that they wanted to have over here in dunya. They haven't prepared anything for the akhirah. So now, is there anything really to go and have fear of? Yes, brothers and sisters. What we in our generation called FOMO, fear of missing out. Fear of missing out, of not being able to go and do as much as you possibly could have here in this dunya. And leaving over there and having shut off this door of possibilities, that's what scares the ulama. It should scare all of us that, wow, I'll never have a chance to go even higher in paradise. I'll never have another chance to go and save myself. I'll never have another chance to go and redo all of those things that were wajib upon me. And therefore, that fear should inspire us to act. Go and get started on some of those things that you have qada. Go and get started on some of those things that maybe in your family relationships, maybe you don't have the best of relationships, start to mend them. Maybe, for example, some of those mustahab things that you've been putting off, maybe Salat al-Layl, maybe some other kind of mustahab act, fasting on Mondays and Thursdays, or on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of a lunar month. Start now, because you don't know. Death is not guaranteed that, it'll happen to us 70, 80 years, 90 years, right? It could happen now. It could happen 5 minutes from now. It could happen, right around the corner. Right? Many of us have heard of ajal al-musamma and the ajal al-mahtum, right? Where we have a contingent death, but that could be moved based on some of the deeds we've been doing. So these kinds of deaths, they are not written over here. Your death could happen over here, or you could move on to the next level. We'll come back to this in the final night of how vertical eternity works. But at each and every single one of these horizontal ends, linearly, you don't have to necessarily move on to the next level of your life. You could end over here. But just doing something as simple as going and reaching out, picking up the phone, calling that aunt who you had a fight with, or an uncle who you had a fight with, or maybe your mom and dad, or maybe your son or daughter, or brother or sister, keeping those silat al-rahim ties, picking up the phone and calling and saying, hey, I've been thinking about you, how are you doing? That, in the hadith, sometimes extends people's lives from 20 years or 30 years old to 70 or 80 years old. It's in your hands. Allah's not saying that you have to have a long life, but if you want a long life, if you want more potential to go and keep on doing things in the way of Allah, now's the time to act. You guys are young. You guys aren't my usual audience of 70 and 80-year-olds who are like, we've already lived our life. What's there to do now? Even those people, if you're listening right now, it's never too late. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be commemorating Hurr bin Yazid al-Riyahi, and he, at the very last moment, decided to go and change his entire fate. His dunya and akhirah completely shifted because of one decision. Never think that it's too late. As long as you have oxygen, there's still time. But now, brothers and sisters, having talked about that, about FOMO, I want to now discuss that realm of potentialities and realm of actualities. See, here in dunya, we live in something known as the realm of potentialities. Here, where you have the potential to go and do anything you want, to go and sow the seeds for a really, really awesome eternal retirement, let's say, right? You have that chance right now. You have the chance to go and take care of your salah right now. Because when it becomes actualized over there, you don't know if you're going to have an accepted salah or a rejected salah. You don't know if the mechanics were good, if the intention was good, if the etc., etc., etc. was good. Here you have the potential. Here you can keep on trying to do better and better and better. But over there, as Imam Ali says, this is the realm, this dunya is a place where there's only action and no reward. And similarly, he goes and says that the akhirah is a time where, or a place where, there's only reward and no action. So, over there where all of our rewards start to manifest, we've all read those hadith where our salah becomes a person, our fasts become a person. Well, if we want those people to look full and complete and with a nice composure and with a nice appearance, then we have to start working from now, because if our salah has deficiencies, and I'm just thinking in that jama'ah salah about some burp that I had, and I'm like, wow, I wonder what that burp tastes like. What did I eat this, for lunch right now? That kind of salah, Allah doesn't want it. He says, here, take it back. I have better salah coming towards me. I'm worth more than this. But that salah, where you are absolutely attentive, where you are methodical, and where you are meaningful about what you are doing, you are careful with how you are mechanically moving in your salah, wow, that one has the potential to go and turn into someone who looks good on the Day of Judgment. Or not even on the Day of Judgment, even in your qabr, even in your barzakh, where they are helping you along the way. But just like how it could turn out looking good, it could also turn out looking really bad. Again, brothers and sisters, this is up to you. Whether you want to take your wajibat seriously or not, I can only give you the warning. The rest is in your hands. I can't drag each and every single one of you. I have my own dunya and akhirah to worry about. You have your own dunya and akhirah to worry about. But the only thing that we can do here is just remind. فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَى سَيَذَّكَّرُ مَن يَخْشَى. Just remind if the reminder is something that is beneficial. Now, of course, we know that the reminder is beneficial, therefore we have to remind. The one who is inclined to remember, he'll take the necessary steps. So the rest is in your hands, brothers and sisters. But just remember, just because you don't see any of the rewards or punishments here, doesn't mean that as soon as death starts and the ma'ad starts, you won't start seeing the effects. And bad actions, the bad potential, also has an actualization in the grave, in barzakh, in Jahannam. Those shackles, the fire that comes out of people's backs, people's bellies, because they ate the wealth of the orphan, for example, as the Quran says in Surah An-Nisa. All of these things, they're not some metaphor. They're not something to go and just take as, here or there, we'll find some way to go and interpret this. No, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling us the actuality so we can understand that over there is a reality of something called fire in that realm. How does fire work in that realm? It's much more powerful than in this realm. But we can't understand it because we're limited to 3 dimensions. And so, brothers and sisters, take muraqabah and muhasabah seriously. Every single day before you go to bed, ask yourself, is there something that I could have done better today? Could I have fit in a little bit more? Could I have become 1% better? And similarly, on the account of muhasabah, is there something that I could have done differently? Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I spoke to someone harshly. Why did I do that? What was the trigger that caused me to go towards them? When I go and start dissecting even my evil traits and my dispositions and my attitudes, and I see, this was because I'm a little bit more irritable when I'm around this person. Or over here, maybe I'm more prone to using bad language when I'm with this person. Maybe I'm more prone to going towards higher elevations. Maybe I become inspired. Maybe I become more motivated to do things when I'm around this learned person. See who you are around. What are your environments? Slowly start to go and introduce changes, small changes, tweak, experiment. Once you go and see that these things are working, now you can go and 1% each and every single day become better and start to leave and replace bad habits with good habits. So then, if that's the case, coming back to what is death like, we know that in the Quran there is something called Sakarāt al-Mawt, and we also have something called Sakarāt al-Mawt. Sakarāt al-Mawt is something that happens to everybody. Sakarāt al-Mawt is something that only happens to disbelievers. Sakarāt al-Mawt, for example, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam says that here when Sakarāt al-Mawt come, then the first thing that will go is a person's speech. Because now the realities of barzakh are starting to become manifest. You're starting to see things. You're starting to see angels. You're starting to see Ahlul Bayt. And we'll come towards the end of tonight about who exactly do we see. Who does everybody see? Who can we also see if we so choose? Okay, over here, if we start seeing the imams, if we start seeing angels, and our tongue is still able to go and work, that'll go and just reveal the secrets and just tell everybody who's standing by our bedsides in those final moments what exactly is happening. when we didn't get those cheat codes, when we didn't get those kinds of secrets of, hey, I see this person, I see that person, it doesn't really make sense for everybody to, or anybody to get those kinds of secrets. So the first thing that goes is speech. The second thing that goes is hearing. Hearing in this materialistic multiplicity world, in dunya, starts to go, and you can only hear things that are happening in the barzakh. You can hear the speech of the Prophet, hear the speech of Imam Ali, hear the speech of Malik al-Mawt as he comes towards you in those final moments. And you start to not be able to hear all the crying that's going around you. That might be a little bit annoying, might be a little bit distracting, like, hey, I'm trying to listen over here what the Prophet's saying. Can you stop crying for a minute so I can hear what he's saying? Is he congratulating me? Is he mad at me? And so the hearing is what goes next. And finally, sight, and then once the sight goes, the soul is taken. In these three steps, it's called Sakarāt al-Mawt. Why? Because Sakara means something to do with intoxication. When those people who go towards haram substances, right, whether alcohol or drugs, when they describe what exactly are the effects that they feel afterwards, they feel loopy. Sometimes you can even go and see, like, look, this person, he looks like he's on drugs or he's a little bit addicted, right? This person, when they start losing control of their senses, when they start losing control of what first? Garbled speech. Then even what they hear, they're like, wait, hold on, did I hear that correctly? Then even their vision becomes blurry, right? These are all stages of Sakarāt al-Mawt. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it Sakarāt al-Mawt, because you're starting to feel the shift in realities. You're having another layer of realities being opened up to you. You're not losing your sight of dunya, or your hearing of dunya, or your speech in dunya. You're gaining more, and so slowly we have to stop giving you access to what you used to have here in dunya. And then we have something very, very interesting, brothers and sisters, that even in these moments of Sakarāt al-Mawt, when angels or angel of death come towards us, something very interesting happens. Where, for example, we have hadith that seem to suggest that Malik al-Mawt has the highest number of conversions above anybody else. More than anybody else, Malik al-Mawt converts people towards the right way. Say, what do you mean? Malik al-Mawt, when it is time to go and take the soul, the angels, of course, were watching. The ones who go and give the testimony and go and write down the deeds, right? And we'll come to writing down the deeds in a couple of nights. But when Malik al-Mawt comes and he sees that Allah is pleased with this person and how they were living their lifestyle, this was a godly disposition. They're shākila, right? Kullun ya'malu ala shākilati, the Quran says. Everyone will act according to their disposition. This is a dangerous ayah that can be misused, especially by the people from the alphabet community. I'm just acting based on my disposition. I'm doing what the Quran wants me to do. No. But those people whose disposition was godly, was divine, but maybe they had the wrong conclusions religiously, beliefs-wise, philosophically, right? To give you an example, and I know this person has, faced controversy recently because of maybe some of the things that have been uncovered posthumously. But generally speaking, the majority of people have a very good view of Mother Teresa. So let's just use Mother Teresa right now, just as an example. Please follow the example. The example is as follows. Mother Teresa is on the throes of death. She's experiencing Sakarāt al-Mawt. And now, Malik al-Mawt, the angel of death, comes and says, look, you lived a pretty good life. You just happen to believe in some wrong beliefs. This whole Jesus being God thing and the Trinity. Look, I'm here to tell you the reality of, what actually is. The reality is there's only one God. Muhammad really was his messenger. Maybe you didn't hear all the right things about Islam. Maybe it was distorted because of this news channel or that news channel. Whatever it was. So I want you to repeat after me. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Wa ashhadu anna Ali waliyullah. And then after him, Hassan ibn Ali, Hussein ibn Ali, Zain al-Abidin, Muhammad al-Baqir, Ja'far al-Sadiq, Musa al-Kadhim, Ali al-Ridha, Muhammad al-Jawad, Ali al-Hadi, Hassan al-Askari, and finally al-Qa'im, al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, al-Mahdi, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi ajma'in. So, when we get to these people that had a good lifestyle, we see that Malik al-Mawt takes into account their good lifestyle. And whether they tried looking for the truth. If they didn't finally end up receiving or reaching the truth, Malak al-Mawt gives them the right answers at the end. Kind of like when you're in 3rd grade or whatever and you're doing your math homework, but then you kind of peek towards the end of the book where the answers are, right? This is basically the equivalent of that. Where Malak al-Mawt says, okay, here's all the right answers. Just take the shahada so that I can take your soul while you are in the state of belief. Now, this person dies without any qada prayers, any qada fast, any missing hajj. They died in the state of Islam. They don't have anything to worry about in barzakh. They don't have anything to worry about in qiyamah. They will go to paradise. Their deeds were aligned with what Allah was looking for. But similarly, brothers and sisters, some people who were born on the right beliefs, and of course for us, everybody will believe that their beliefs were the most correct. And of course we're going to believe in our narrative that our beliefs were the most correct. The belief that there's one God, Muhammad is the final messenger of God, and there are 12 imams. Those people who were born into those families, but their actions were the furthest thing that could ever be imagined from the actions of Ahlul Bayt, from Muhammad and al-Muhammad. Those people, not only when Malak al-Mawt come towards them, someone else comes towards them as well in our hadith. What does it say in our hadith? Who comes? Iblis himself comes. Now, Iblis comes, but with what? He comes with one of those metal cups. I don't know, for those of you who have been to Pakistan, to India, maybe to some of the other countries, Iraq, Iran, they used to have these kinds of stainless steel kinds of cups, right? Or maybe not even stainless steel, but they had these cups where, especially if it's cold, oh my God, if it's a hot day, right? And especially those of you, of course, you guys are all here in Dallas. You guys know what heat truly is, right? God save us when we're on Yawm al-Qiyamah and in Jahannam. I mean, if any of us ever have to go, may God save us, but Dallas is enough, right? Here in the heat of Dallas, you have those stainless steel cups, that perspiration, those beads of evaporation that come and start making the drink, the water, look even more enticing. This is what Shaitan, Iblis, comes with at the time of death of these people who were born into the correct beliefs, but their actions were the furthest thing from being aligned with those beliefs. What does Shaitan come and say? He said, he goes and starts changing the atmosphere, starts changing the temperature of the room that this person who is dying, starts changing the climate, starts making it extremely hot. Goes and asks that dying person, you want this water? Yeah, you want it? He says, yeah, I really, really want it. What do I have to do to get it? He says, you have to do one thing. Ukfur billah. Reject Allah, renounce Allah, and I'll give it to you. Person over here is given a test. It's not necessarily always the case that the person says yes. It's a test. But if that person fails, and they just really, really want that glass of water, they'll say it. They'll say, I reject Allah. I renounce Allah. Wal-'iyadhu billah. And as soon as they do, does Shaitan give them the cup? No. Shaitan goes and pours the water out and says, you fool. You thought that by rejecting the Lord of all worlds, the master of all peoples, you thought that by doing that you would go and get this small little thing, die now as a kafir. And now in this state of kufr, before they get a chance to go and change their mind, now Malak al-Mawt goes and seizes their soul. So can we ever say for sure that this person died as a mu'min? No, maybe they died as a kafir. Maybe they died in a state of disbelief, even though we saw all throughout their life they died with good actions, good belief. We cannot really say. All we can do is make dua that, Ya Allah, let us die also on this path that is correct. Yes? And if we are not on the correct path, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us to that correct path. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So now, we have some stories of people who this actually happened to. There's a story of someone who, for example, was a good teacher. His name was Fudayl ibn Iyad, and he goes to a student and he's trying to recite Surah Yasin. The student is very sick of it. Why is that student sick of it? Because it ends up dying in the state of rejecting Allah. In a dream, he comes and the teacher sees that this guy is being led off to hell. Goes, well, wait, but he was so good. It was only at the very end that this happened. Can I ask him why he's being dragged off to hell? Of course, this is the hell of barzakh. Why is he being dragged off to hell? He's allowed by the angels to go and tell his teacher. Why? It says three things, and also a fourth kind of thing as well, got me into this fate that you see me in right now, where I'm being dragged off to hell, and I died Ṣīʿā al-Āqibah, with a bad ending. What were those things? Number one, I used to slander people. Number two, I used to be jealous of others. Jealous of others what? Jealous even in religious sense, where, oh wow, why does that person have so much knowledge? Why does that person get all of the invites for the lectures? Why does that person have all of the karāmāt? Why does that person have A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z? Jealousy is one of those things that can lead to people dying with Ṣīʿā al-Āqibah, the wrong kind of ending. May Allah save us all from dying in that state. Number three, I used to be one of those who created mischief. And Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah, or وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَكْبَرُ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. Fitna, causing this kind of gossip and causing people's reputations to go down the drain and just causing trouble, this can be worse than murder in the eyes of Allah. And so this person used to cause that kind of mischief. And number four, he comes and says that I had an illness once and I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, in order to get rid of this illness, what you need to do is drink alcohol. He says, really, I need to go and drink alcohol? He says, yeah, if you don't, you won't get cured. Now this person hasn't fully internalized that life and death are completely in Allah's hands. Like we said, there's two types of death, right? Fine, maybe let this whatever bodily thing take you all the way to death. If Allah hasn't decreed death for you, it'll be years before it's time for you to die. How many of you have, by the way, known people who have gone through stage 4 of cancer, made complete remission, then gone back, then made remission, then come back? Life and death is in Allah's hands, brothers and sisters. Don't just say, oh wow, the doctor said I have to go drink alcohol. Oh well, I guess I have to now, and then you start drinking. Went and took this alcohol, he says, because of also this, these four things, now I am being taken to this destination, which is Jahannam. And we don't have to go through too many stories. These stories are found in our resources. You can find these in the books of Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi. You can find these in so many of the lectures and resources that are out there already, which I highly recommend. These lectures are meant to go and bring an outline for us so that you can go and plug and play and fill in more details as you do more research. This series is only 10 nights. It's not going to cover everything, obviously. So now it's on you, if you're interested, go forward and make more discoveries in this realm of barzakh and qiyamah. So then we have the question of what is the soul doing in between the time of the Malak al-Mawt taking the soul and the time when they're put in the grave. Here, brothers and sisters, we have a couple of hadith where the soul of the believer is taken up through the samawat. He hears all of the good things that are being said about him, that, oh wow, he was such a good son, she was such a good daughter, etc., etc. And he's given a little glimpse, it seems, of paradise. Whereas the disbeliever is given a little glimpse of hell. Just to kind of give them a little bit to understand, this is what you've kind of prepared for yourself. Here's a little glimpse of what you have going forward. But the reason why we emphasize so much in our hadith that we need to go and make the burial as soon as possible, if possible the next day, but not to go and delay it more than 3 days, is because it really starts to affect the soul. They start to become bothered, because now they're starting to see more and more of these veils being lifted, and now they can see scorpions, they can go and see snakes, they can see all these kinds of things starting to come towards them, and maybe they don't have enough good deeds to go and fight it off. Therefore, it's better to go and just put them in the grave so Munkar and Nakir can start the questioning. We'll come to that 2 nights from now, inshallah, so that they can start going through their journey of barzakh, and they don't have all these intermediate things between death and being put in the grave. This is why they need to be put into the ground quickly. Other schools of thought, for example, the Ismaili school of thought, it might not always be the very next day. It might not always be, that week even sometimes, right? Sometimes it's delayed a little bit, and they may have their own reasons for doing so. But from our perspective, we are told that, look, the soul becomes in a very agitated state Even while you're doing the, what do they call it? Those talqeen and even the, salat al-janazah, all these things, the soul is there hovering somewhere nearby the body. They're seeing all the speeches that you're making about them. They're seeing all of these kinds of things, and they feel sorry for you that you feel sad for them, right? But at the same time, they're like, look, I'm still here. I didn't just go into non-existence, right? Death is something that's just a bridge that takes us to our next journey. Those people are still there. It's interesting that Einstein even thought of the same thing because of his understanding of time. A friend of his died. He went and wrote a letter. Einstein wrote a letter to the wife of this deceased friend of his. He said, no, my friend, your husband, he still exists. He's just over that hill. We'll see him again. But right now, given our current mechanics, we can't see him. This is exactly what we believe, right? And in our school of thought. If they're not completely gone, we'll meet them again. It's just right now, we can't see them. And inshallah tomorrow or in the upcoming nights, we'll see how dreams, especially at a certain time, between Isha and the Adhan of Fajr, those dreams are true. So if you see a beloved, a deceased, something like that, that is actually them. And they might have something that they need to ask you, or they might have something that they need help with in that realm of barzakh. And it's now your job to go and try to help them. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, why are you doing ʿAqīl walidayn? Why are you becoming so negligent of your parents? The person who he was talking to said, what are you talking about? I was obedient and I was helpful towards them all their life. He says, yeah, that's the problem. All their life. As soon as they're dead, you forgot all about them. Now that they're dead, they need more help. So go and do some a'māl for them. Dedicate some of the good things that you're doing. The volunteering that people do over here. Go and dedicate a little bit of it towards your marhumeen. They need it. Just like one day we will need it. And so, brothers and sisters, if that's what exactly the soul is doing, are there things that can help our marhumeen at the time of death and will also help us at the time of death? We already started mentioning that, yes, if we start dedicating, we start double dipping, we can go and also get benefit, as well as our marhumeen can get benefit, as well as the society around us. If we're just going and helping and we're organizing majalis, or we're organizing some kind of a online resource or something, if people benefit from that, you think that there's no benefit? Those kinds of things, as we'll see in later lectures, those are perpetual income. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ, Surah Yasin says. We will go and write down what they did, as well as the after effects of all of the residual income that good deed is bringing in terms of more good deeds and more thawab. So what are those things that we can see helping us according to Ahlul Bayt? Number one, brothers and sisters, and I'll only give 4 because time is limited and we have to wrap up. Number one, Silatul Rahim, keeping up those relations with parents. We'll talk a little bit more in the upcoming nights when it comes to Silatul Rahim, but keeping up those relations with family members, as we mentioned even previously, those things do help. Number 2, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to a person and said, why are you, I see that you're going through a lot of hardships right now. Why don't you try reciting the kalima, right? And he was not able to go and say the kalima. A lot of us, we have this idea of, okay, as long as I go and die with the words La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah on my lips, I'm fine. But some people we've seen, even at the time of Rasulullah, he's trying to get them to say the kalima, they're not able to say the kalima. Why are they not able to say it? Rasulullah asked the mother of this boy who's dying, are you mad at him? She says, yes, I'm very mad at him. I'm upset at him. She says, okay, well, whatever it is, can you forgive him? She says, no, what he did was too egregious, I will not forgive him. Sometimes these things, right, they happen. Rasulullah says, no, please, for my sake, forgive him. Like, for your son's sake, look at how he's suffering. Do you want him to suffer? She's like, no, you have to let this go. You have to forgive. She forgave him. Now Rasulullah says, go and try reciting the kalima right now. And Rasulullah went and told Malak al-Mawt, he told Jibreel, tell them not to take the soul yet. And of course, these angels, they obey Rasulullah. Rasulullah is, at a higher position than them. They didn't take the soul. He did the kalima, and he sees, I'm seeing someone who had a very ugly complexion with a black cloud over his head. He used to be over here. I was seeing him, but now he's moving away, and a person with good, light coming from his face, sunlight coming over his head. This person is coming more and more towards me. Rasulullah said, now, okay, angels, you can go ahead and take it. And in that state, he died with belief, he died on the kalima. But brothers and sisters, Silatul Rahim is something that's necessary. Number 2, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, a person who clothes a believing brother or sister of his, believing brother or sister, it is incumbent on Allah to clothe them with the clothes of Jannah, as well as make his end easy, meaning the time of death easy, and also save him from the fishar qabr, meaning the squeezing, the narrowness of the grave. We'll touch on this a little bit in upcoming nights. But those 3 things, for what? For clothing your fellow believer, brother or sister. And of course, brothers and sisters, the better the clothing you'll get in Jannah, the better treatment you'll get at the time of death, the better treatment you'll get in the grave. Meaning, fine, if you have some clothes to go and donate, don't be shy, of course, to go and donate those to the believers who are in need. But also, it's better if you do what the Imams did. Buy new clothes and donate those. Buy new clothes that you would want for yourself, but then go and donate those. Keep the old sofa, keep the old furniture. Give the new furniture that you just bought to someone who's in need, someone maybe who's a refugee who just came over here, who needs furniture in their house. Yes? For example, when it comes to sadaqah, a lot of people will only go and give sadaqah to a mosque that they attend. They'll only give sadaqah to a mosque that they know that there's some chance of them getting some kind of a position in the leadership, some kind of position in the board or directors or whatever. Challenge. I have a challenge for all of you. Go and donate to a mosque that you don't even go to, that you have no hope of ever becoming something big in that community. Go donate over there. You'll still get thawab, but now you'll know you're doing it without strings attached. You're not doing it with the hope that someday they'll go and see, oh wow, this guy's such a big donator, this sister is such a big support in our community when it comes to donations. No, don't do that. Do something for your akhirah that is clean and purely for Allah. Yes? Number 3, a person who offers something sweet to a believing brother and sister. Again, believing being the key word. Then the pangs of death will be easy for him, meaning Sakarāt al-Mawt. Sakarāt al-Mawt will still happen. The speech, the hearing, the eyesight, all of that leaving. It doesn't have to be Ghamarat al-Mawt where it becomes very hard and intense. It can be Sakarāt al-Mawt where it's just, the different senses are being turned off. That's if you feed and offer something sweet to a believing brother or sister. And number 4, there is a dua. Keep uttering this dua throughout your day. It doesn't just have to be in Salat al-Layl, but we read this dua, or we are encouraged to read this dua in Salat al-Layl. What is this dua? This dua is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah al-Halim al-Kareem. La ilaha illallah al-Ali al-Azim. Subhanallahi Rabb al-Samawat al-Sab'a wa Rabb al-Ardeen al-Sab'a. وما فيهن وما بينهن وما تحتهن ورب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Keep on reciting this throughout the day. This will ease your time of death and it will become much, much easier for you. Of course, the behind the scenes of why these kinds of things, the sweet, the clothing, all of these things have implications of what they're doing to us spiritually, right? They actually have an effect on us if we're actually consciously doing this, not just, oh, hey, here's a sweet, right? If it's done without that intention, if it's done without that meaningfulness, that intentionality, it's not going to do anything for ourselves. By going and giving something sweet to the believer, this triggers something mentally of, hey, I need to be a believer myself. If we're giving clothes to someone, hey, I need to be a little bit better in my own day-to-day good deeds, right? If I'm reciting these lines that I just recited, the dua of Faraj, it's known as, which we recite in Salat al-Layl, these names of Allah, these realizations of Allah, they should be making changes in how I act, both with Allah and with my fellow human being. And finally, brothers and sisters, what can we do to stay on the right path so that we're not tricked by shaitan and fall into that trap with the glass of water or whatever other tricks he has up his sleeve? Number one, there's a dua named Dua Adila. Find it on YouTube, I'm sure. If not, on duas.org. And go and recite this dua with some cadence, with some frequency, so that you can be safe and stay on the right path at the time of death. Number two, we have 5 usul ad-din, brothers and sisters: Tawheed, Adala, Nubuwa, Imama, and Ma'ad. Tawheed is the belief in radically only one God. No shirk, no other partners, no one is at the level of Allah. If you are convinced why there needs to be a God, why there can only be one God, not a trinity, not a polytheistic system, if you are convinced, then it's going to be very hard to go and shake you. Same thing with Adala. This God needs to be just. Nubuwa, this God communicates to us through prophets. This God, Imama, after prophets are done, he keeps the silsila going, he keeps the episodes going with divinely appointed leaders who are also infallible, who do not make mistakes. That way we can go and use their examples to also reach God again. There's always a proof of God living and amongst us at the time. Whether he's seen or not, that's up to the circumstances, but he's always alive and on earth. Imama. And Ma'ad, that finally one day you will have to go back towards Allah. You will have to answer for all of your deeds. These 5 things, go through a basic course, right? And go and learn convincing proofs for each and every single one of these 5 beliefs that I just mentioned. Then, once you have been convinced, here is where we have the troubling thing. Are we going to remember them when it's necessary? Right? Sometimes we get into arguments and then a little bit later we're in the shower or we're driving back home and we're like, ugh, if only I had just remembered this. That would have been an excellent comeback, right? That would have been a really, really good way to go and show them that I was right. Well, when it matters, when shaitan is over there and he's trying to trick, have those 5 proofs ready, then recite the following dua. Allahumma ya arhamar rahimin, إني أودعتك يقيني هذا وثبات ديني وأنت خير مستودع وقد أمرتنا بحفظ الودائع فرده علي وقت حضور موتي, which translates to, O Allah, O most merciful of the most merciful, I have kept as a amana, I have deposited my yaqeen, my conviction that I have, as well as these proofs of my religion with you. And you are the best of people to go and leave deposits with. And you have commanded us to keep safe deposits. So please return it back to me at the time when death is standing in front of me. Beautiful dua that our imams have taught us. Have those 5 proofs. Have more proofs. 5 is the basic minimum because there's only 5 usul ad-din. Have 1 for each. But if you can have more, that's how much more convinced you will be. Keep all of these as a deposit with Allah. Allah will go and remind you and He'll give it back to you at the time of your death. There won't be any of this forgetting kind of business. Number 3, what can we do to stay on the right path? Pray the 5 wajib salahs. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha on time. This doesn't mean, oh, I can't pray Dhuhr and Asr combined anymore. Or I can't pray Maghrib and Isha combined anymore. But what it does mean is don't pray them late. Don't pray them qadha. Don't pray them in a negligent way where you, oh yeah, I also have to go and pray. Look forward to prayer. Be ready on your prayer mat so that you are ready to go and pray. Why? Because we have heard from our imams that Malak al-Mawt has said, I see everybody and I visit everybody 5 times a day. What are those 5 times a day? The 5 times of prayer. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. If he sees that you are not taking your relationship with Allah sincerely, he is a servant of Allah. He is a representative sent on behalf of Allah. So if you're not respecting Allah, you're not respecting His boss, why should He respect you at the time of death? So this is something to also keep in mind, that praying 5 times a day on time, this will go a long way with our relationship of Malak al-Mawt being happy to see us, not disappointed in seeing us. Number 4, we only have 5. So number 4 of these 5 is continuously just keep on reciting Tasbihat al-Zahra. 34 times Allahu Akbar, 33 times Alhamdulillah, 33 times Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar comes first. A lot of people make this mistake, they don't know better, and they say Subhanallah 33 times first, Alhamdulillah 33 times second, then they'll come to Allahu Akbar 34 times. No, the way how Rasulullah taught Fatima al-Zahra is that the 34 Allahu Akbars come first. Then you can choose between Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah to come second, and then whichever one's left, you can do that third. And number 5, of course, there's many, many more in our resources, which were too many to go and bring up. So who do we see, brothers and sisters, at the time of death, when we are close to death? Who do we see that can help us at that time of departure? We read in our hadith that everybody, whether they're mu'min or Muslim, whether they're kafir or mushrik or munafiq, whether they're a believer, a regular Muslim, whether they're a rejecter, whether they're a hypocrite, whether they're just a regular non-Muslim who doesn't reject, who's not a hypocrite, just some average Joe who's out on the streets, he just doesn't know. What happens at everybody's time of death? Rasulullah and Imam Ali alayhi salam, these 2 people come and they are there at that time of death. We find that Rasulullah will go and introduce himself. I am Muhammad, I am the messenger of Allah. And Imam Ali alayhi salam will say, I am his successor, Ali ibn Abi Talib. These 2 people will come to every single person at the time of death. And whether they are smiling or whether they are frowning gives us a good sign, a good indication of how we did in life. Were they happy with us or were they sad with us? But then there's also things that we can do, brothers and sisters, in this life, where the Imams have told us, if you do this, I will come and see you at your time of death. How many of us have heard that if you come and visit me in Karbala, I, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, will come and visit you at your time of death. He'll come from the barzakh and he'll come and visit you at your time of death. How beautiful. This is how we understand, by the way, that Rasulullah was there at Karbala, Imam Ali alayhi salam was there at Karbala, Fatima al-Zahra was there at Karbala. All of these people who we hear about were there at Karbala and they were watching, but from the barzakh. Right? So then we see, for example, where Imam Ali alayhi salam is said to be in one of the ziyaras, As-salamu ala ni'matillahi ala al-abrar wa niqmatillahi ala al-jabbar. When he smiles, he is a ni'mah, he is a blessing for the people who are good. When he's frowning, I don't need to tell any of you. You guys know how Imam Ali alayhi salam is in war. When he comes and he's charging at you with dhul-fiqar, that's sometimes some of the last things that people saw in their lives. That was some of the scariest things that people saw in their lives. Don't let that be what you see towards the end of your life. A sad and disappointed Imam Ali. That will be the hasra that you feel. That feeling of regret, of ya laytana, oh my God, if only I could have done more. Like I said, with FOMO, that will be one of the most difficult feelings to go and see, where my Mawla is not happy, or my Rasul is not happy. Yes? So let's save ourselves and do something for our akhirah, starting these 10 nights, inshallah. And of course, we also have Imam Rida alayhi salam, if you come and visit me in Mashhad, I will come and visit you at your time of death. And so that's why, brothers and sisters, we need to go and make sure that we make these 2 happy. That will be our first sign when we are going towards our death of whether we successfully or unsuccessfully live this life. Remember, they're watching us this whole entire time. And that's why we can take a lesson even from the time of Muslim ibn Aqīl when he was in Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqīl, when he is on the rooftop of Karbala, something is going to happen that is worthy of being examined. But we'll get there in a few moments. Muslim ibn Aqīl, as he comes to Kufa, he is met with a lot of support, and he sees a lot of supporters of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, a lot of friends. Of course, they had sent letters saying to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, come, we are ready. It's unfortunate that one night he is praying, and slowly people are leaving, and they're leaving him to pray alone. Eventually, he has a few companions left, and he goes through the streets of Kufa, And even over here, as he's walking in the streets of Kufa, once upon a time, that city that used to be ruled by his uncle, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. These same streets are now showing Muslim in his final moments as being alone. More and more people are leaving and leaving and leaving until finally we come to Muslim ibn Aqīl knocking on the door of one of the supporters of Abu Abdullah. And she says, please, you are my Mawla. Oh Muslim, come and stay with us. But she made one mistake, brothers and sisters, which we also need to learn from. She trusted her son knowing that he was with the government of Ibn Ziyad. We need to make sure that we don't go and just spill the asrar, the secrets of Muhammad and al-Muhammad towards their enemies just because they might be our friends or family. We need to take these lessons. We only have one final ma'soom left. We can't afford to go and make the same mistakes as those who did in our past. This is why the history is there, so that we can learn from the mistakes of our predecessors and we can, inshallah, not repeat those mistakes at least. And become more aware of potential mistakes and avoid those mistakes and give Sahib al-Zaman the support that he deserves. Muslim ibn Aqīl stays that night, but she unfortunately tells her son. The son is driven by greed and dunya. And he goes towards Ibn Ziyad and he says, that Muslim ibn Aqīl that you were looking for, guess what? He is in my house. Give me my reward and I will take you to him. Gives him the reward. And what a small price that he sells the ambassador of Imam Hussein alayhi salam out for. This commander brings to the house of this believing woman about 3,000 people. And of course, these people are not trained to fight. And so when Muslim goes and fights and fights and fights, it's very easy for him to keep on decimating these lines of people who are coming. And when they go and even have exchanges, the commander and Ibn Ziyad, he says to Ibn Ziyad, I need more people. He says, I gave you 3,000 people, what's wrong? He says, you sent me the people of Kufa who just bag groceries and mend shoes. You think that seriously these people will be able to go and take care of one of the lions of Banu Hashim? You think that this is going to be enough? Send me more people. And so more people came. Eventually they started throwing rocks at Muslim ibn Aqīl. Eventually Muslim ibn Aqīl is hit with a sword such that it slices the bottom and upper lip of the blessed Muslim ibn Aqīl, and now blood starts gushing from his lips. He needs to go and start nursing this so that he can coagulate the blood so that it won't eventually get into anything that he eats or drinks or water, because of course blood is najis. And in this, he keeps on getting more and more messages. Just put your sword down, we'll give you amnesty, stop fighting. He doesn't stop fighting, he keeps on fighting until eventually the cowards surround him and they eventually take him towards Ibn Ziyad. Muslim ibn Aqīl in his final moments says, some very enraging things to Ibn Ziyad, but he still tells Ibn Ziyad, give me that chance to go and make a will. Umar ibn Sa'ad comes up to Muslim ibn Aqīl, tell me what is your will. He says, first and foremost, tell Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I have experienced the betrayal of Kufa firsthand. Tell Abu Abdullah not to come. He says, as for this, we will never honor this request. He says, as for my second request, I have some debt that I incurred for my tabligh, this stay in Kufa. I have a certain amount of dinars and dirhams that I need to pay back. Can you pay it back? You are related to me, Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, this I can do. He says, third, I want you to, once you go and kill me, don't just leave my body to be on the streets of Kufa. Allah. What did they do to you, O Muslim, once they finally did kill you? And how long did they keep on just ridiculing your body? And how long did they keep on desecrating this holy body of yours? Muslim ibn Aqīl is told, this one we will also not honor. And eventually, the killer is given the command, take him up to the rooftop and show him what we do to these people who are against our regime and our government. He ends up going and saying to Muslim, do you have any final words? And may these kinds of words be all of our final words. Where he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah وأشهد أن عليا ولي الله بسم الله وبالله Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. He sees Imam Hussein alayhi salam in his final moments. Imam Hussein, of course, comes and visits this cousin of his, this loyal ambassador of his in his final moments. And this is how Muslim ibn Aqīl finally loses his life. They chop off his head. They go and throw that off of the palace of Ibn Ziyad first, and then they kick the body of Muslim ibn Aqīl off of the rooftops. For the next few days, they are completely kicking the body of Muslim ibn Aqīl. They are torturing the body of Muslim ibn Aqīl. They are slicing up the body of Muslim ibn Aqīl, until finally the family members and the other companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they steal it and they take it away and they bury it. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimeen. But what do we see in those final few moments? That even the killer of Muslim ibn Aqīl comes and testifies and tells Ibn Ziyad, he says that he saw something and he said suddenly, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Then I, out of anger, killed him. But also at the same time, I went and turned around and I saw at my side that there was someone with a very darkened complexion, with a very harsh looking complexion, and he was either biting his lips in some riwayat, in other riwayat he's biting his teeth and biting his fingers at me. A bad omen, basically. And I started to shiver and become horrified. And I came back to Ibn Ziyad and I told him that this is what I saw. And he said, maybe it is something that you just imagine. Of course, we know that people come and visit us at the time of death. And sometimes, even before that time of death, to go and show just how displeased they are when you deal with the representatives, even the representatives of Allah, the representatives of Ahlul Bayt. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters, in the dua. These kinds of nights, our duas and our tears, they give us the status of mustajab duas. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters, in the dua while we recite the following verse 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.